if you're experiencing any of the edges in your life, it means that something is orbiting and wants to come through. So if you can really feel your feelings and be afraid, but also be ready to face the fears that are coming up, grounding into your worth, that's where you're going to connect with this manifestation. From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips. As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. Part of our manifestation process entails expanding past your limiting subconscious beliefs. Therefore, by tuning into this podcast with interviews from experts, thought leaders, spiritual teachers, scientists, and those with neural manifestation success stories, you're starting the process of expanding your subconscious in order to see to believe that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. I'm so excited because we are celebrating our 3-year Expanded podcast anniversary, and we're going to celebrate it by doing an Ask Me Anything with Lacy and I. It's actually such a good episode. I've listened back a few times myself already, and there's so much insight. Lacy touches in the energetics of what's going on right now for manifestation, what may be coming up for people. She also shares her tips through motherhood. We talk about things we're loving right now, book recommendations, interior design tips, things that are lighting us up. It's such a good episode and so nice to connect with you guys and answer all of your questions. If you guys missed it, we posted an Ask Me Anything question box a few weeks back before we recorded this. So if you ever want to submit a question for any of these, make sure to follow us on @ToBeMagnetic. And we also wanted to share a really loving thank you to all of you guys for tuning in and supporting us. This podcast would not be what it is without you. And we're so thankful for your support and tuning in each week. And we love connecting with you guys and can't wait to keep growing alongside you.
And now, a word from our partners.
So I'm constantly on the lookout for clean, organic foods in my grocery store. I'm checking the ingredients list, making sure they don't have any additives or products that are going to disrupt my microbiome or not be good for me. And I've been on the hunt for the past few years to really find the cleanest alcohol brand out there. Alcohol brands tend to not be very transparent. Their wine can be loaded with sugar, almost 40 to 60 grams per bottle. They can be added with fillers and syrups and sulfites and all of these things that actually the thing that makes us feel horrible in the morning, aside from the actual alcohol. And so I knew that I've been wanting to find a really clean alcohol alternative for some time now. And I was really excited when I stumbled upon Juneshine, our latest podcast sponsor and partner. So Juneshine is a 100% natural and clean hard kombucha. As someone who drinks kombucha, I always wind up drinking kombucha in 2 sittings because of the high sugar content. Even just a regular kombucha can have anywhere up to 16 grams of sugar, which for someone with digestive issues is not great because it can destroy the lining of your stomach. So Juneshine is essentially the champagne of hard kombuchas. It's made with jun, whereas regular kombuchas are made with black tea and tons of refined sugar. Juneshine is made with green tea and raw honey. They have full transparency and list of all of their ingredients, their nutrition facts on the side. Some of my favorite flavors by them are blood orange mint, which just has blood orange, mint, beet juice, green tea, and the Jun kombucha. They have a grapefruit paloma that is grapefruit, lime, green tea, and Jun kombucha. It's so light. It's not very vinegary and acidic like a lot of other kombuchas can be. It's super smooth. It's really kind of like the perfect replacement for a bubbly rosé, which always gives me hangovers from the sugar, or an IPA or a nice light beer. It's the perfect summer or fall cocktail. And the best part about it is their sugar is less than 2 or 3 grams per serving. This really sold me because I'm constantly looking for something with low sugar. The sugar is the thing that really makes me feel the worst and gives me the worst brain fog in the morning. And I would notice even after 1 or 2 glasses of wine sometimes, unless I was careful of where I was getting the wine from, I was feeling horrible the next day. With Juneshine kombucha, I felt incredible the next day, as if I hadn't drank alcohol at all. The founders, Forrest and Greg, are 2 very active guys in Southern California and really wanted more transparency in their alcohol. There were so many toxins in alcohol, and so hard kombucha was the cleanest way to make an alcohol that was toxin-free, gluten-free, and probiotic. You do not get the morning fog, brain fog from this. You will not get a bloat like you would an IPA or a beer. It is really made so organically and cleanly. And even the honey they use is 100% organic, which you know the importance of organic honey as well. The company is also extremely sustainable. They are 100% carbon neutral. 1% of their sales go to 1% of the planet through the Patagonia nonprofit system. 100% of the ingredients are organic from different sustainable farms. Their breweries are powered by solar. They compost, no paper products, no plastic cutlery. Everything that they're trying to do with this company is completely aligned with what we hope for our future of our planet. And I cannot recommend it enough. It is so delicious. It is the perfect thing you want to grab right after a long day at the beach or out in the sun or from a hike to just relax, enjoy the golden hour, see the sunset, and feel good the next morning knowing you're feeding your system with great ingredients. And you can get 20% off your Juneshine purchase with code TBM at checkout. We have a link in the show notes. We're so excited to be partnering with them, and I'm sure you'll hear Lacy talk about them more in detail and how much she's loving them. And if you have any questions at all, I am so happy to talk about them with you. Again, some of my favorite flavors are the grapefruit paloma, the blood orange mint, and the tropical citrus. I'm not really a beer drinker, but something about that tropical citrus is just so good. So I hope you guys enjoy and look forward to seeing your Juneshine. Cheers! So I wanted to share my experience with the Blue Blox Remedy Sleep Mask. I was never really a big sleep mask type of person until my boyfriend introduced me to them when we first started dating. He came over with eye masks and earplugs and really stressed the importance of blocking out the outside world in order to get that deep, deep, deep sleep. So I started using them and, it would fall off my head or light would come in under the nose, but I still noticed that when I had even a tiny bit of light protection, it was helping my sleep. So when I heard Lacy talk about the sleep mask on the podcast, blocking 100% of blue and all light, and there was almost like a cushiony goggle type form that allowed you to open your eyes and not have any light come in, which you cannot do with any other sleep mask, I was hooked. So I bought a pair for myself and my boyfriend. From the very first night, it was game changer. My sleep was better. I was way more relaxed. I was able to sleep later into the morning because as the sun came in, there was no sun waking my body up and alerting, my cells to realize that it's daytime. And I've pretty much never gone back. So I use it every single night. I swear by it. It truly, truly blocks 100% of light. And what I really like most about it is because it is blocking the light, and you can learn in our previous podcast episodes with founder Andy Matt what light does to the body when you're trying to rest and recuperate your cells. But because it does that, it really calms my nervous system. So I'll even use the sleep mask when I'm doing a DI to help me go deeper into my meditation practice, or when I'm flying. I know I haven't been doing a lot of that in the past year, like many of you, but even in 2019, whenever I had to make the long distance from LA to New Jersey, I would use a sleep mask, and it was game changer for flights and helping me calm down and calm my nervous system. So I cannot recommend this enough. feel free to DM me. I love when you guys DM me and ask my experience because I will send you back a little voice note or let you know any other questions you may have about it. When I love a product, I share with all my friends and I'm constantly sending links to Blue Blocks. So if you guys are looking to purchase or interested for a sleep mask or any other Blue Blocks product, go to the link in our show notes, or you can use the code MAGNETIC, all caps, MAGNETIC, for 15% off for any Blue Blocks products.
All right, on to the episode.
I'm so excited today because I'm recording with Lacy again for the first time since maternity leave. She is back in action. We are so excited to have her back. Welcome, Lacy.
Hi, I'm so excited to be back as well. And I think today's conversation, I've been meditating on it, will be really interesting because it's just such a different perspective now that I think both of us stand in. I may be appealing for what I have to say for those who are exploring or curious about potentially having a family or becoming a parent, and the other side of it. And then you know, in the phase of life that you're in right now, which I think is a very different one than a year ago when we started doing the Ask Me Anythings, which we haven't done many of them. But I just think it'll be a cool dichotomy and interesting conversation.
Totally. And it's so funny too, because I've gotten so many beautiful messages from TBMers over the past few months. They're like, oh my gosh, I can just hear in your voice how you've up-leveled and stepping more into your voice and all of those things. So it's really cool because I don't see it really like that. I'm just like, okay, let's keep going. Let's move forward. But it's nice to have that reflection back. And yeah, listening to beginning episodes, I'm like, oh boy, who was that person? What's going on? But it's fun to see the up level throughout the process.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way through my journey, just in this brand in general. And so I can totally reflect that back and identify with that. And I think it's so cool when people follow it and can recognize it and can potentially feel the mirror back themselves on their own arc and journey. So I like that you mentioned that.
One thing I actually want to kick off with, because it's just been percolating in my mind so much lately, are you having any pings or insights to the energetics going on right now? Because I feel like there's a lot of stuff happening. There's a lot of astrology happening, all of that. But even just like one little takeaway, you don't have to go in depth on it. But is there anything that you're feeling on that front, or maybe something that's coming up for you that could be reflective to other people?
I think for me, like, I still have a little bit of contact with the outside world. I'm just starting to again. I was pretty insulated during the postpartum phase. So I was really, just in this bubble. But I do have different support that's been coming through or people I've been talking to. And I think the big theme that I'm seeing that pertains to manifestation, I won't get into the energetics of like the bigger political scope or health scope and all of that stuff. But what I think I'm really seeing, and it's really simple, it's having to ground down into our worth. I wish it could be more profound than that, but I think that's what it's the same message that we had at the beginning of COVID. You can go back and listen to that episode. We'll link it down below. But I think a lot of people are being pushed to their edge in different various ways, emotionally, financially, physically. And I think that when we get pushed to that spot, and when I say push to your edge, usually the energetics around it can be a magic dark, can be an up level, can be a rut or a rock bottom. And so it's just kind of determining if we fall into one of those categories. And then the ultimate tool at the end of the day is, how do I ground down into my worth and my expansion surrounding it, my own truth, and what you can look at as being the greater gift through that, whatever you're going through, whether it's an up level, a rut, a rock bottom, or a magic dark. I think the beautiful thing is, no matter what space you're in, it means that a manifestation's orbiting you, or else you would be feeling nothing. You could be a listener right now that's like, I actually don't feel any of this stuff that people are talking about astrologically with those eclipses and everything to do with just the general scope of society. If that's happening, it means that right now you're in a phase of just enjoying and flowing and being where you are. But if you're experiencing any of the edges in your life, it means that something is orbiting and wants to come through. So if you can really lean into the edge, feel your feelings and be afraid, but also be ready to face the fears that are coming up and work through it, grounding into your worth. That's where you're going to connect with this manifestation. So even though collectively we're all going through something right now, individually, I believe the universe is always trying to connect us with what we want. So it's not a super profound message aside from like these takeaways. Ground into your worth. You're probably up against an edge. If you are, lean into it. It's really scary and it can be big. It can be a lot to hold in your nervous system, but that's why we have this work that guides you through that. Recognize which edge it might be. Is it an up level? Is it a rut? Is it a rock bottom? Is it a magic dark? And at that point, use the energetics to navigate it. All you're doing is expanding and grounding into your worth. What about you? What are you feeling? Because you're probably a lot more connected to the outside world than I am right now.
That is exactly it. From me to friends to family, like across the board, that is exactly the energetic. Is so many people are pushed against their edge. They're so close, or they just had a big manifestation come through, or they're so close to a big manifestation coming through. Yeah, I feel like I'm seeing that so much. And I feel like for me personally, I'm just definitely redefining what it looks like to be in an abundance mindset versus a lack mindset, and not just in a monetary realm, but in like with my self-care, what's an abundance mindset, with how I choose to eat or exercise, what's abundance versus lack, like just redefining the lack mentality and really trying to work through a whole nother level of moving past the lack mentality. That seems to be a recurring theme.
I love that. And I think we used to talk about this internally, that one day it would be so cool to put a workshop out on this. But even talking about like the attachment styles, whether it's, avoidance, secure, all of that, we would talk about how it's applicable to everything and really comes down to either lack, abundance, fear, which I usually think fear is just the root of control, us controlling our lives to not be in pain or experience something or have hurt or any of it again. And it all really just comes down to either you're contrasting or expanding. So I love that you're looking at abundance in all aspects of your life through that lens. It's like, am I contracting right now or am I expanding? Am I abundant right now or am I in lack? And that's where at the end of the day, everything to do with manifestation is just energetics, and we're putting words on energy. I've actually been looking at my own life. I was swinging in the hammock this morning with Teddy and I was like,
oh, so cute.
I know.
What a beautiful picture just to think about.
Well, we go on a hike every morning for her first nap of the day, and she only gets so much of it because we have this little loop right around our house we can walk up to. And so when I walk home, I go and sit in the hammock with her so that there isn't any noise inside or anything like that that can wake her up. So we just sit there and swing until her hour-and-a-half nap is up. And I a lot of time to ground and meditate there and channel too, which has been coming through a lot more lately. And very similarly to what you're talking about, which potentially could be applicable to a lot of people right now being pushed to their edge, is that really looking at fear versus openness. And what came up for me, I was noticing that I've been really controlling a lot of things lately in the fear of like, what if I don't get enough sleep, or what if this happens, or what if I lose this thing, or et cetera, which is just what we're talking about, lack versus, it's constriction or expansion. And then I was like, wow, really looking at the root of it, which is all to do with control. And they can go vice versa, where it's like, oh, I'm just controlling or fearing because I don't want to feel pain or discomfort or hurt. And when we're pushed to our edge, that's everything we're experiencing, right? So at the end of the day, while we're doing this work, maybe a really cool meditation is what you're saying, the awareness of, and trying to choose when possible. I always like to be the person to say, like, don't preemptively choose just to choose, like spiritual bypass, like I'm going to choose abundance right now. Do the work around it so you're actually making an informed subconscious choice. But if you can have that awareness, like, am I in lack or abundance? Am I in expansion or contraction? Am I in fear or complete trust? If you can look at that at your edge as you're experiencing anything, any of those places we talked about, wherever you might lie on the spectrum, can you do the work around it to root down into your worth? And at the end of the day, the worth category in the part is always the expansion part. It's always the trust part. It's always the abundant part. But it's like you can't just choose and spiritually bypass. You have to dig in and you have to subconsciously get there. And another little note that I just want to make on something that you said, for the people who are having their their big manifestation may have just come in, there's also a huge up leveling that comes with that it can be overwhelming because you're in a new normal that can sometimes be isolated and lonely because maybe you've just let go of tons of your community, or maybe you've up leveled to a financial position that now you're like, oh shit, what if I ever lose this or whatever? That's another point of being at an edge of growing your nervous system, to have the expansion and the worth to be able to hold that manifestation and accept it and receive it and be okay with it.
100%. And I even noticed tests on the other side of an up level to be like, okay, now that you have this, are you going to integrate it? Are you really going to utilize this new level? Like, how are you going to feel comfortable at this new level? Which is really interesting.
Yeah, integrate being the key word for sure.
Oh, so cool. So let's kick off with some of these questions. What is, I know it's probably ever changing, but what is your current morning routine?
Well, yeah. So this is where, my answers will be kind of funny because they're just on the other side of parenthood, but it really just depends on how late Teddy sleeps. So if she sleeps into the 6:30, 7 o'clock spot, it means that I can do some yoga stretches. I, without a doubt, brush my teeth and get into the shower, because that's the thing that during the first postpartum phase got swept under the rug the most. It was really hard to do. So shower, brush my teeth, and then I meditate. That's huge. And always the moment she wakes up, because we've followed since the very beginning. So anybody out there who's about to have kids or is curious about it, or maybe right there, we really loved the baby wise and full feed method, because my biggest fear of becoming a mom was not being able to sleep. That was just with adrenal issues and like health issues I've had in the past. I was like, oh man, this would maybe be the thing that does me in, where I can't be that conscious and show up as well as I'd like to as a mom. And so when I found this method, it was the person we used for paint at Portola Paints in LA. The son who runs it had just had a baby and had a toddler, and he was like, follow this method. And so I went home and I read the book and I found the full feeds method from Melissa Wood Health. Her friend has that. I personally think the full feeds is just a lot more digestible and less dogmatic. And so we followed it from birth. And the whole essential theory is like giving full feeds every feeding. So not really cluster feeding, but if they get all of the ounces that they need in the day, they begin slowly to sleep more and more through the night and can go longer stretches. And so we reached at 10 weeks that she sleeps 7-hour stretches. So we're getting full sleep. It actually worked so well and so intuitively. Like, there was no forcing. It was so organic, and her approach to it is really soft. So with that said, usually we'll have a night of good sleep. And if Teddy's sleeping in right now to that 6:30, 7 o'clock spot, I do the above. But another component of the method is they have very specific awake times. And so right now she has a 75-minute awake time that we like do her brain stimulation and play and tummy time and all that stuff. And then for her next sleep cycle, we go on that morning hike. And so that to me is like church for me right now. That morning hike is everything. It helps me feel good about my body, like moving my body so gently. And then also it's part of my meditation, my spiritual connection. I'm bonding with her. She's sleeping on me. We're usually pretty skin to skin because it's so hot right now, which promotes the milk. And then, like I said, we will swing in the hammock. And then after that nap is when I start my day. So it's a really beautiful way to still have that touch in, that self-care that just, benefits everybody. Max usually comes with the dogs. And so we're having like a family connected moment. So that to me is my real saving grace right now. And we also bookend the day with either a beach dip in the evening, similarly, like a nature beach dip right after her last nap, or we do the same hike.
What a dream. Like, that sounds incredible. So interesting that you said it's such the perfect exercise, the hiking. I have felt for so long that walking, just walking, is one of the most healing and effective exercises that's so underrated. Just walking. It just feels so good on the body. I feel like it really gives your body so much, especially when you're surrounded by nature. It's wild.
I could not agree more. And I think as a projector who's suffered all sorts of adrenally stuff, and many people followed my journey on the Bean protocol, where she says no exercise, but flat walking essentially, or really gentle yoga, it really truly is amazing. To me, I was actually seeing my friend Jordan, who's been on the podcast from The Balanced Blonde yesterday, and we were commiserating that, like, thank God for being able to walk still. It doesn't deplete us. It gives us energy. It feels like the best movement for the body. It's also, anybody who's studied any energetic work, you're getting all of your meridians moving and the chi moving and the energy moving. So there's a reason why we do it naturally and have been doing it since the beginning of time. And I get sometimes really, like, I've been trying to be barefoot on our property as much as possible, but I do wear those grounding shoes that I found through Luke Story, who's also been on the podcast and is a friend. We'll link those below, but I wear those as well to, like, feed two birds with one scone,
Yeah.
which I think is much more evolved. And so I ground, I'll do, I'll either wear those or I'll go barefoot. We're about to go up to the Forest House for the first time this weekend, and we'll do the same thing, like a flat hike that's 2 miles, and then we jump in the river after for that cold plunge. So there's a way to do it. There's definitely a way to do it. Even if you're right smack in the city, you have even more access to flat walking. What about you? What's yours look like?
Yeah, so I've been really trying the moment I wake up to just kind of roll over and grab my headphones. I've been feeling really sleepy when I wake up. And so I'm trying to take advantage of that hypnagogic and hypnagogic states that Dr. Tara was talking about, how it's easier to drop into the meditation in those states. So I'll reach for my headphones and put on a DI and just let it ease me into the morning. And it's been so effective. Like, I'm able to drop in so much deeper into the meditation, fully relax my body, start the day off with a relaxed nervous system and not in fight or flight. And then I'll get up and, brush my teeth, water with lemon, maybe journal if there's a little bit of time. I try to stand out on my balcony and get some sun, just some normal things. But I think the only thing I'm really prioritizing for sure in the morning routine is trying to get that early morning meditation in. And I don't really push it, like most of the time it's super effective. And then those days where I'm just bopping around from DI to DI, I'm like, no, maybe I need support here. No, maybe I need support here. I'm like, okay, this is just not my morning. I'm not able to click in. And then I'll just get up and do a breathing exercise really quickly to rejuvenate my system. But I allow myself the grace and intuition to know when I need to dip into that DI very deeply or when it's time to just start the day and let it go.
I love that you said that. And I actually want to answer this question because we got this for years. And again, I have a very new baby and I know toddlerhood's going to be very different. But people would always say, how do you do the work when you're a mom, especially a new mom? And I will tell you that this is the number one way I get sleep when I haven't slept or I'm not sleeping is I do the DIs and I do the journaling work. So namely, for instance, there will be periods where Teddy's sleeping through the night, but after the midnight, she wakes up around 4 a.m. to feed, to nurse, and I'll pump at that time as well because that's where I gather the extra milk for my supply. And if I can't go back to sleep, that's when I, like, right away, I grab my headphones and my phone and I do a deep imagining, which will just get me into that deep theta relaxed state where usually I can fall asleep right after, but I'll have done a little bit of work. Secondly, when I haven't had any sleep, like last night, she was really gassy. So she was actually up through the night. And right before this podcast, I was in the studio and I'm like, I have to do a DI just to drop and feel like I get at least a 15-minute nap. And in that case, I'll do the health and body DI just to literally put myself under, take myself to the deepest relaxation and wake up with a bit of energy. And then the other time I do it is when we're nursing. I'll do it a lot, and I'll do it on a speaker. So it's something we're doing together. I'm not just like ignoring her and doing a DI. But I just wanted to put that out there because we would get that question so often. Again, as she gets older and even more and more alert, it'll shift. But for now, that's how I'm doing it. And I always do a DI every day. And I love that you touched on when you know that maybe you're not dropping in easily, that you might need other support. That's happened to me actually. And we've been talking a lot as a brand of, new things we want to add in the future because of that very reason. But on those days, I just do the binaural beats one. And it's been so amazing.
I love that you shared that about how to fit in as a new mother, especially. And I imagine the times that you are able to go to those DIs, you feel so much more rejuvenated on the other side to show up differently too.
100%. It's night and day what I was experiencing right when I first walked into the office versus when I got up from that DI. And now I'm all, energized and feeling really, really heart-centered.
Oh, love that. Okay, so here's a fun one. What is your favorite thing about your significant others?
I'll let you kick off.
I would have to say I love how much fun Daniel and I have together. We constantly are making each other laugh. We're doing like really weird voices or little skits with each other. Like we're always up to something together, and it feels really just like our thing that we have this sort of dynamic with each other. So I love that about him and our relationship.
I think that's so beautiful. And I think that if anybody can grasp that, the playfulness and that childlike connection. I have so many friends that say that sex is the glue that holds a relationship together. And I think everybody has different versions of what their glue can be. But to me, playfulness, I think, can be the true glue that holds people together and that can take the edge off and the seriousness off and the stress off. It's the off button. So I think that that's a really cool thing that you mentioned. For us, there's so many things that I love about Max and our relationship. And I would say that the thing that I love most, and I think it's another question we receive for today's conversation, is how much space and autonomy we give one another. For years, I was going up to the Forest House by myself for 2 weeks at a time, and we didn't skip a beat. It was amazing. And we could both get our work done. And we're so solid and trusting in our relationship that we're never worried about, is this person going to leave? It's just that those triggers don't come up. So I would say for longevity, that's the thing that I appreciate the most. And then like you guys, we can always find the thing to laugh about, the joke, and to make fun of, especially seriousness that we had, or a fight that we've had, or, tension. And then I think the last thing is that Max is literally my ride or die. And I can really say that after this experience. Like he is just so solid. It's crazy. And he is like the vision holder that makes me every day wake up and go, cool, how can I take my avoidant tendencies and my lack of intimacy, and how can I ground this deeper based on my own, triggers and trauma that have come up? He's such medicine that shows me like, oh, it is safe to heal those and let those go and be solid like he is. So, and the list just goes on.
Oh, I love that. It's been really beautiful to just, even just see secondhand little by little how much both of you have just sort of up-leveled so much through having Teddy and becoming parents. It's just insanely beautiful and more grandiose in terms of like love and connection than I even could have imagined. So it's really gorgeous to see.
Thank you. And just on that note, for people who are in a situation where they're considering having a family together, I had no idea what we were going to be like on the other side. And I actually really didn't have a clear idea of what he would be like as a father. I mean, I knew he would be, his dad was so present and, it was like the dad making sandwiches before school, but so successful at the same time. So I knew he would be a very present dad, but he was also a workaholic that was obsessed with his brands. And and all of that. I mean, he literally was home for 3 months and he now only works 3 days a week and works from home 2 days a week so we can be together. It's just been astonishing to watch, like, wow, I really scored here. I really manifested well. I'm so grateful. So thank you for saying that.
Yes. And you kind of touched on this one already, but how do you carve out the alone time when you're living with your partner?
I think for this, so I've lived with many partners and they've all been very different relationships. I think for this piece, it's important to figure out what your version of solitude is. What does that look like? Because it can be totally different for people and it doesn't completely have to mean physical distance. So for me, solitude is meditation. Baths are literally the biggest medicine for me. Journaling's another huge one. DIs, I classify that under meditation. So I think that you just have to figure out what really fills you up, what disconnects you from everyone else's energy and makes your energy field very clear, and creating that in your home and your relationship and cultivating that. And I think that that's the way to carve out each other's alone time, whereas your partners could be totally different. His is hanging out with friends. It's very different, even though he's a spiritual being. So it's really about each other finding out what your solitude is and then supporting each other in it more. And when we're alone on the weekends, we don't have any support. And he's like, how can you get a bath in and take care of yourself and get a meditation? And I do the same thing with him. I'm like, I'll take these 2 naps so that you can go and garden. So that's, to me, how you do it. I think everybody's version is going to look very different.
Yeah, I think it's also a lot of trial and error. Like, I think with so many people going into lockdown with their partners over this past year, it's different depending upon how much space you have. Luckily, Daniel and I were sharing an apartment with another roommate at the beginning of quarantine and then decided to take over the second room when that roommate moved out, which was such a blessing. And we're so happy we did that because we needed an extra room to, have our alone time, have our own space, feel like we're autonomous doing our own things, especially during lockdown. But I think to what you're saying, Lacy, finding those moments that you can have that solitude, whether that is going for a walk alone, or maybe it's you get up a little bit earlier than the other person and do your journaling routine in the morning with silence in the apartment or house, when the other person's not there. And then asking for it when you need. Daniel needs more of his solitude than I do, and I'm able to get it in those like quick bursts. He likes elongated period of solitude. So if he's really needing space for the day, I'll be like, look, do you want the apartment for the day to just like do whatever you want, be creative, float around, working on music or this or that or whatever. And I'll go out like shopping for the day, or I'll go for a long hike or whatever. And we'll kind of organize ways to give each other that space when we're needing it.
Brilliant. I think that's incredible. And I think that everything you touched on is becoming very relevant. So such sage advice. So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily, in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones. You can use our special code EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first a la carte workshop purchase or $20 off your first month of the Pathway. Again, that's all caps, expanded, EXPANDED. Okay, now back to the episode.
And then what was your first date with Max?
Well, that's really funny. I've talked about this before, but with Max, I called him in on a list 6 months before he appeared, and I was still in my prior relationship. My ex had to live in Paris for quite some time, helping his grandparents, and we both had just grown apart in many ways and wanted very different things in life. You know, he was not interested in a family and deep commitment. So I just knew, I was like, this is going to be a very hard transition, but I need to call my next partner. I need to figure out what I want, what my future looks like. And so after we broke up, 6 weeks later, an old friend asked me to a barbecue, and I went, and, you know, it was honestly having like the time of my life being single. It was because I had manifestation down so locked at that point, especially in relationships, which ended up being my first forte. And it was so much fun when you understand and you're so in your worth and you're so expanded. It was just like every day was like Christmas and magic. So it was really interesting. This particular friend and I had not had a falling out, but we had just drifted, and we reconnected after my breakup, probably 2 weeks before this barbecue. And she asked me over to it. I said, sure. I wouldn't normally go because I was, you know, kind of inward. And so I went, and it was the first person there. We were on time. And so we just chatted, and we had so much to talk about, you know, very Virgo, Aquarian conversations. And we chatted through the night. And at the party, I asked everybody, I was like, well, what's your sign? You know, what's your birthday? And I started reading their charts a little bit. And he told me his birthday, which was the same as my stepdad, who I loved dearly, but put my mom through the worst custody battle on planet Earth. And I was like, oh God, no, stay so far away from me. I have no interest, you know, past trauma kind of stuff. But I said, like, here's my phone. You can send your chart to yourself. And of course, he then texted me the next day, said, can I take you out to dinner? And I kind of got his stats from my friend. And I was like, oh my God, he's 4 years younger than me. No, not a chance. And then long story short, we did. And he was such a boss on our date. And it's so funny to come to find out now. Like, he picked me up in a black Uber, and I was like, that's weird, but okay, like, cool. And he was successful and, you know, already owned his own house. And I was living in a 300 square foot apartment that was also $300 a month. And he took me to this place I hadn't been, which was Algerian food. And I was like, okay, this guy's cool, you know, and he was really cool. And we just vibed all night and had the best conversation. And I learned a lot about his family and him and his journey. And I was like, wow, how is this guy so much cooler than all of these older guys I've been going out with that are successful, et cetera, that, you know, look like my list in a very different way. And then, yeah, that was the night. It was just like, he was just a boss. Like, he handled it. And you know, when you're dating in LA, I think you can probably, and I hadn't been coaching people through relationships yet, but come to find out that this is all very common, but you just can wind up with some really, you know, below bar experiences. And he just handled everything. Like, I was raised, you know, with a lot of chivalry. I don't think it's everybody's way, but for me, that's attractive because of my childhood programming. I was raised by 2 cowboys and an Iranian man. So it's like, to me, to have somebody just show up and like have a plan and be so interesting. And I walked away being like, damn, that was a good date. So that was our first date.
Max got some moves.
He had some moves. And, you know, Virgos are like this. I mean, I don't know if other people identify listening, but I would see this with clients, both female and male, much more with male. But even the males, like, if they are hooking up with people, they do not at all get into a committed relationship until it's the person they've been waiting for. They're so meticulous about it. And this is especially true of females. A lot of them, I don't think, even really hook up much. They become celibate until they find the right person. And Max has a Leo Venus, you know, and I have an Aries Venus, so it's so compatible. So when a Virgo takes you in, it is such an honor. It means you're the queen or king, whatever somebody identifies as, that they've been waiting for. And that's just such a special thing. And I will always remember one thing that one of his business partners said, who was very close to him. And she said, wow, this girl doesn't even know. Like Max is going to serve her everything on a gold platter because she knew him so well. And my friend relayed that to me. And I was like, wow, everything I've been looking for after not having any of that for a long time.
I think that's so expansive. I love hearing the early dating stories too with couples. And I think that's really expansive for everyone who's dating now too. Daniel and I had like almost met a few times because we were in different cities and had a mutual set of friends. And we met at a 4th of July party. And he did a similar thing where like my phone was unlocked because it was playing music at the party. And at some point during the evening, he took my phone and texted himself, but I kind of missed it or whatever. And we had been, flirting, had great conversation and all of this stuff during the night. And then after he left, I got a response from him back saying, oh, thanks, Jess. I had such a great time too. Can't wait to see you again. I was like, what? Did I text him something? He texted himself from my phone. Hey, Daniel, you're so handsome and fabulous. It was wonderful getting to know you. Can't wait to see you again. And I was
That's
like,
awesome.
I was like, oh my gosh. And then he said, look, we both still are very obsessed with music. He was like, look, let's make each other a playlist. If yours is better than mine, then I have to take you on a date. And if mine's better than yours, then you have to come with me on a date. And I was like, okay, fine. He thinks his playlist won. I'm confident minded. But our first date was at a trampoline park.
Oh, wow. I've heard that actually many times.
It was so fun. And I was like, even like years later, I was like, what prompted like the trampoline park over like a restaurant or this or that? And he was like, you can't have awkward silence at a trampoline park. So on a first date, you never know how it's really going to go. And it was really fun. And we were just like laughing and playing. And there was like kids all around the whole time. And these two adults just jumping on everything. So it was a really good date.
That, like, I think that he had moves as well. That's original. That's interesting. Also, that, like you said, could go so wrong if there wasn't a vibe. So I'm glad that you guys had met beforehand. That's so interesting. So we both, ended up meeting through mutual friends, it sounds like.
Yes.
But I will say this, and I want to hear your take on this as well, because I see this a lot in our community group and through the work that people are really afraid of apps. They're like, I never want to go through an app. I'm not desperate, etc. I'll say this, for the 6 weeks that I was single, apps were amazingly fun. I was on Raya. I think that was it at the time. That was 7 years ago, but it was so fun. And when you're in your worth and like you understand the energetics, it's so fun because it's so easy to weed people out. And I don't know, to me, it was a lot of fun. So I just want to expand people in that way as well. I did end up meeting one really interesting person off of the app that was a contender alongside Max at the time. And we had gone on a few dates and he was really, really cool. And I really want to specify this, and I want to hear if this was true to you as well, Jessica. When you meet the person that I think you're meant to tango with for a while, I don't believe in the one, I don't believe in forever. I believe in two people growing together, and that's probably what the true energetic glue to a relationship is. But when you meet them, it feels like home.
Oh, yes.
When I met Max, and the more we spent time together, the way I could decipher that he, aside from being my list pretty much, he felt like home, like straight up Mariposa, Modesto, high school, even though he had lived an entirely different type of childhood than I had in very different places. It was the energy of home, like I was hanging out with, and not sexually, but like I was hanging out with family or a cousin or something, it was just home.
Yes, 100%. And it was so funny because I was in sort of that really fun, playful dating phase right before I met him as well. And I wasn't necessarily looking for a partner at the time. I was just kind of dating to have fun. And when I had that connection with him, I was like, oh, shoot, I'm going to be with this person for a long time. Like, I feel it. Like, it feels like this is something bigger than just like a quick dating experience. I need to get ready for this because I was just thinking we were like all having fun and dating new people all the time and blah, blah, blah. So I have to like get my mind centered on like, wow, okay, cool. Like this is going to be a whole new experience and I'm going to go into a relationship. It didn't have an expectation like, first date, but it was like a knowing that this person was going to be around. Like this wasn't moving.
And how did you feel about apps back in the day before you had met?
So I really didn't go on apps. I went on Bumble, I think, for like 24 hours and wound up matching with like two of my ex's friends. And I was like, not for me. I was also like closer to Daniel at that time. So I feel like the universe was trying to get me towards him, and apps maybe would have taken me in a different direction. But I have so many friends who are in such beautiful, beautiful, loving relationships, just went to a friend's wedding, and almost all of them met on Hinge. So there seems to be something with Hinge, or maybe just the apps in general, where there is such a potential for long-term, like finding your partner. I've seen it happen so many times.
I love that. Good advice.
Yes. So trust your gut on it and enjoy the apps and don't be scared of them.
No, I think I've gone to 3 app weddings.
Yeah, it's wild. And they're like so compatible, like feel like they've known each other forever. It's wild. It's really cool.
I just think it's where your worth and your shadow are at, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Oh, this was one I thought was interesting. What's your favorite place to shop online for interior design?
Oh my gosh. Well, Etsy, number 1, always. That's where I find and score the best vintage stuff. If you look at the Forest House up north, it's where the huge, 1700s farm table's from. And my favorite store on the whole planet for interior design is Nikki Kehoe. That's something you would find in Nikki Kehoe for like $7,000. And I think it was $900. So Etsy is the place to like really dive deep and score. I think First Dibs can also be like that, because what I like about First Dibs, and you can do this on Etsy too, but there's actually a space for it. Vendors will put a space for it where you can give a bid, like you offer what you would want to pay for it. So I find a lot of stuff on there. When it comes to accessory stuff, Nikki Kehoe is always my place to go. So that's like pillows, blankets, a lot of the kitchenware and stuff like that. It's just so fun and hobbity and playful, and has that little flair of Europe that I like, but old Europe. So that's a favorite. I also love Shop Amber Interior. I think you can find affordable things to really expensive things on there. I go through this a lot actually, because I have a lot of friends who are doing tiny projects, whether it's a bathroom in their house or they're wanting to build a little this or that. So I have a pretty extensive list now, but I think my favorite paint, I think you can always go cheap on paint. In my personal opinion, I think it tends to look almost the exact same as if you go with Farrell and Ball or Portola paints. So up north, I just use like Benjamin Williams, like exterior and interior, I think is a really good company. That's something to know about. And then I get like a lot of hot tips off of Remodelista. It's one of my favorite blogs to look into. And usually when they show interiors, they'll show a lot of staples from it. A lot of people ask about the tile in my bathroom. I mean, they're so magical what they create, but Clay, that's CLE, we'll link it below. But yeah, my go-to for online shopping when it comes to accessories and furniture would definitely be Etsy, Nikki Kehoe, and Shop Amber Interior. And then I get into really eccentric find, like old places that are ridiculous to look at, like Denmark 50. And, there's so many different places that I won't even bother mentioning, because a lot of times I look at them and I can't even afford to breathe inside of the store, but they have very cool things.
I think that's so cool and expansive. And I love how you find a lot of stuff on Etsy too, because I think like finding repurposed stuff or refurbish or whatever it is such a key thing. I remember when I was first furnishing my apartment in LA, I had nothing, like 0 things. And I didn't want like a straight IKEA apartment again, which is like kind of what you do right out of college and such. And, IKEA does have some great pieces, though I will say that, super affordable. But Facebook Marketplace was such a good spot because people are getting rid of stuff. And I've also had a ton of luck if you do like estate sales. People will get rid of stuff. They have no idea the cost of it or how much they could be selling it for. And they don't really care because they're just trying to like move. And there's so many people moving in LA all the time. So I would look at a lot of those stuff. And I think Amber Interior is amazing. Their design aesthetic is great. I think even looking at places like CB2 or Article is awesome, or some of the more expensive shops like Restoration, but then figure out, okay, this is the style I want. How do I call in something similar, but not quite at that price point, but it has all of the nuts and bolts that I'm looking for? That's what I try to do. I never am like, okay, most expensive item, check. I'm like, most expensive item, and what's something else that like might be derivative of this or have like a different flair and is repurposed or someone owned it before or whatever, and try to get things that way.
And I'm somebody, I think I made the conscious decision around, it was like 27, where I was like, I want to start to get pieces that other people don't see readily. So I kind of stopped with the West Elms and the stuff like that, not because I think they actually do really cute stuff. And I was just looking for the glamping tent up north. And I'm like, God, they make such cute things. But it was wanting to be a little bit more unique. And so one thing that I will always encourage people to, don't be afraid to look into custom furniture places, like people that make them. Here's an expansion. When we were looking for our couch with COVID, everything had like a 16 to 24 week lead time. It was crazy. I was like, cool, we're having a baby and we won't have anywhere to sit in our living room for months. That's insane. And there was this one couch at Restoration Hardware that I liked. And I liked a few other, everywhere had the lead times, and it was just a bummer. And I didn't like how toxic Restoration Hardware's, slip covers are and stuff. They're linens. So Max found this place in downtown LA that makes custom furniture. It was a quarter of the price of Restoration Hardware. It was ready in 3 weeks. It's beautiful. It's the couch we have in our living room. So that's something too, like it actually can be cheaper to go with those places, depending on your budget. And then another thing is when it comes to things that you can't really tell the difference, I usually will do the low cost thing, because if it's, fine for the environment or whatever, within reason, I usually go that route. So for instance, like when I was doing the floors at the house up north, I knew I would do light oak hardwood floors in there. And so I went to one of those outlet stores for hardwood floors. It's like I didn't go to the premier places. Another great example is whenever people walk into our house, they're obsessed with the rug. It's literally just a jute rug that's in our kitchen, but it ties it together really well. It's like good old brown jute rug. And everyone's like, where did you get this rug? Where can I find it? And I'm like, Target.
Yes.
So, it's you with those like really basic pieces, that's the place I think to just like not spend a ton of cash, And I'm old school. I love Facebook Marketplace, but at this point, I do Craigslist. So as an expander story, I knew for Topanga when we were redoing it that I really wanted to honor the 1930s cabin that it is. Our big inspirations were Deacons and Big Sur, Monca's Lodge we stay at every New Year's Eve, which is in Inverness, California, and then Chiltern Firehouse Hotel in London. I was like, if I can pull all three of these together, I can pull off this house. And so one thing that we were looking for, like I went with a really expensive stove up north, and it was like the dream stove that I've been wanting forever and could be a write-off and all of that. But here I was like, for that 1930s vibe, to honor it, I want an old, 30s stove. And so I went right on Craigslist, and this was the manifestation of a lifetime. We got an O'Keefe, and anybody who's into old stoves would know this, but they're the old white stoves with the metal griddle in the middle from the 30s, 40s that we got for $390, fully refurbished.
Oh my gosh.
People pay like $3,000 to $4,000 for that. So Craigslist, also another Craigslist find, I really wanted one of those original wood fire stoves. They have the little squirrel on the sides. We'll link it below. And I had been wanting the 1B, it's called Morso, Morso, I think, 1B. And I wanted a true vintage one because they sell them still today. Found it for $490, literally in the valley off of Craigslist. So I'm like all about, you just have to hunt. You have to do the hunt. You have to call in. And I manifest that stuff. Here's an even better manifestation.
You're like the ultimate interior design expander right now.
Totally. It really comes down to just like truly calling in what you want. So at Monca's Lodge in Inverness, where we do stay on New Year's Eve, we stay in one cabin. It's called the Fisherman's Cabin. The woman, Margaret, who designed it, she's so cool. She put in this, they're called a center fill tub. They're from the early 1900s, super rare. Only so many of them made. And why they're called that is because the spout's actually at the bottom inside. It's just this round little thing. So it fills from the bottom up. And it's so cool. And it's ginormous and stunning. And after we were there on New Year's Eve, I was like, I want this for our house. Like, I'm manifesting this tub, and literally walked in 2 weeks later to Pasadena Architectural Salvage. That's another thing. Most everything in our house that I find, windows, always doors, even light fixtures and stuff, they're usually from salvage yards because I love vintage, and that's usually literally the cheapest way to go for anything. And they had it in there. People cannot find this tub anywhere. It's so hard to get your hands on. So really manifesting is, I think, such a key thing in interior design.
Yeah, I think all of those are such great tips. And even the salvage yards too, or even the lumber yards. Like, people want so many wood pieces. Daniel and I are going to go soon to look at getting like some wood shelving and such, because you can get shelving online and they're so expensive. I'm like, this is just a plank of wood. Why is it so much?
And it also looks, new and cheesy.
Yeah. I want something that feels lived in and used, and maybe we'll restain it or whatever it is, and we can just get it at a lumber yard and it's more authentic and unique. So, hot tip there.
I love that.
Any TV shows, films, or books that are piquing your interest currently?
Ooh, right now. Well, I was obsessed during postpartum, and I was trying so hard to honor the phase and not expose Teddy to any of that like stimulation. So there would be points, because they nap so much when they're new. And there were points where I was feeling really dark in my mental health that I was like, I need to just go into another world right now. And shows do that for me. And one of them during that time that I loved so much was The Nevers. Did you watch that on HBO?
No, not yet.
Oof, I loved it. So basically the premise is, without giving too much away, it's like Victorian London, and it is about all of these women who, well, women and men actually, who have these gifts. They're called the touched. So it's basically about how they're outcast in society. So they have all of these extra sensory gifts. And it was so dynamic and interesting. And it only had, I think, like 6 episodes, but I was obsessed with that. And it's probably the last thing I've totally engaged in for a bit, because I've been, I've had Teddy.
Yes.
So I would like put on headphones with my computer across the room when she would be sleeping. And I would watch it without her hearing it or anything. What about you?
Daniel and I finished Mar of Easttown with Kate Winslet. So good.
Yeah, everyone raved.
That one's really good. And it was interesting too, because it was a Pennsylvania town and I went to school at Penn State. So it really embodied so many parts of like that Pennsylvania small town vibe. And then, Bo Burnham's special Inside was really, really good.
You posted about that,
Yeah,
I think.
it's so, so good. I was just so blown away that he filmed it all himself, composed and written all the songs, created all the sketches, skits, did all the lighting. Everything was him. It was just really impressive. And his songs are so catchy. So Daniel and I have been listening to them on Spotify nonstop. And then we started The Crown finally. We never got into that.
Oh my God. What a treasure. What a gift.
No, everyone said it forever. I was like, I'll watch it. And we're hooked. I think we started it maybe 2 weeks ago and are already deep in season 2. So.
Oh, man. I'm so jealous that you guys get to see it for the first time right now.
It's so, so good.
Yeah, I'm a show junkie. And then I think in terms of listening, to be honest, I've actually been laughing about this with people that I know. My favorite playlists are the different binaural beat, 8-hour tracks on YouTube. Right now, I have paused for when I go back to work after this one called Let Go of Fear, Overthinking, and Worries, Cleanses Destructive Energy. And it's 4 hours long. I love it.
Yeah, I'll have to follow your Spotify and steal some binaural beat recommendation.
No, this is straight up YouTube.
Oh, Oh, amazing.
Yeah, they have the best. Like we all joke, we're like, why are the best binaural beats on YouTube, but they're nowhere on Spotify?
Oh.
And I'm too cheap where I don't pay for like the no ad YouTube. So I'm so annoyed. I'm like, skip the ad at the beginning. Like, good thing this is 8 hours long.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. Oh, I started reading Joan Didion, another Joan Didion book, surprise, surprise, A Year of Magical Thinking, about her grief story. I didn't want to do it for so long because I was like, oh, it's going to be so heavy. You know, how's that going to feel? But it actually was really reflective. And it's also got me thinking about like the cycles of like life and death and rebirth and all of those things and honoring the past. And I mean, it's an incredible book. So
yeah, it's been on my list forever. I'm deep in like all the Rye parenting books. So I don't have a lot to report in terms of, good fiction or good nonfiction.
yeah. One question we got, which I think is really interesting. How do you handle bad days? Not a rock bottom or a rut, just a bad couple of days or feeling down.
Not well. I'm not good about it. I'm really not, to be honest. Well, like in this phase, I haven't been. I've been. And that's so interesting. I saw a lot when I did the Ask Me Anything a week ago. There was a question we probably got so much that I got was, how are you doing? And I couldn't answer it because I was like, what time of the day is it? And I just, to be so transparent, there have been so many ups and downs and all arounds and the full spectrum of the human experience, through this journey. And that's been so cool. But it's also allowed me to see, like pertaining to this question, like something I found myself saying to Max a lot was, wow, I don't have a lot of coping skills with stress or exhaustion, isolation. It's interesting because it's very different than, say, during the pandemic. I do really well in complete autonomy and aloneness. But when, I'm in this whole new phase and different hormones and just all of that, and that's where probably my edge has been, what I was talking about, everybody's experiencing the energetics of this time. And yeah, to my edge, I've been pushed beyond all of my comforts and all of that. So with that said, when I have a really bad day prior to becoming a parent, I usually had skills around it. I had the tomorrow's a new day, and I had a lot of tools in my spiritual tool belt. But I would say in this phase, I have a lot of fears, like, what if this is the new normal? How do I have to hack and figure out a way to get around it? And I think the real lesson I'm learning right now to answer this even more honestly is, how do I surrender? That's my lesson right now. And I think that it's an obvious one. People talk about that in parenting all the time. It's all about surrender. But I haven't been good at that in the past. I mean, here I am creating a whole, system around manifestation of how to do it very effectively and quickly and approachably. So I don't think surrender is a big key thing for me. I'm great at being in trust. I'm really good at having a trust muscle. But when it comes to everyday stresses and being pushed beyond my edge, that's where my growth is right now, that I'm probably doing the most to be magnetic workaround.
I think that's so beautiful that you shared that, and so vulnerably too, because I think so many people probably resonate with that, and 100% so many people resonate with that right after having kids. So I think that's really expansive to just own that part of your humanity, and that's, some days you're going to feel differently than others, and you're navigating all of that just like everyone else.
I love it. What about you?
So I actually started tracking the other week because I started noticing, like, once a month for a day or two, I'll slip into sort of like a slump, whether it's like a sort of depressive state, not a full-blown depression, but like just kind of like a more sadness feeling, more melancholy. I'll notice I'm not as excited about things, and it'll only last a couple of days, and then I'll kind of get out of it. And I was like, there's got to be some cycle to it. So I started tracking it with my period and seeing if there was any similarities there. And I noticed right after I got my period, I started slipping into it for a couple of days. And then I started tracking patterning around, like, okay, what actions were coming up? How was I reacting? I would notice I would stay in my pajamas all day and wouldn't put actual clothes on, or maybe I wouldn't leave the apartment for 2 days. And so when I started doing all of that, I was like, oh, I can maybe help myself either not go into this state or at least get out of it sooner if I can see sort of like the warning signs of it coming. So I think learning the patterning of it has been really helpful. And now I'm starting to implement some tools of like, like I wore my pajamas all day. Let's put on a nice outfit and go for a walk outside, or, do an evening hike or something like that to try to combat some of those urges to want to go insular and protect and hide internally. And it seems to be working. So we'll fill you in more as more presents.
Yeah, what I like about that is it feels very step by step, like very one foot in front of the other. And I think that is something that most people can usually do if they're capable, depending on their mental state, like with mental health and hormones and all of that. But it feels very approachable the way that you are navigating when those times come up.
So, Lacy, when you shared on the Instagram, Ask Me Anything, you shared some of your old journal entries and some of your lists and such. Someone said that you seem to have a gratitude practice in it. Do you still do that? And does that impact your manifestations? Should they be doing that?
No. So I think gratitude lists are awesome. And I actually do still practice them. I can tell you with like 1,000% confidence, it has no correlation to when I manifest. And I think why they're so powerful is because they really help you take inventory of the things in your life that make you feel good and make you feel happy. But as I've always believed and say, positivity isn't the thing that creates manifestations. And I usually try to give really controversial but impactful examples of this. I say like narcissists can be some of the best manifestors because they believe they're correct. And I really want people to understand that I think that a gratitude practice is paramount. We see the science and research. We see how much it affects the brain, the body chemistry, our mental health. It's a paramount practice that is so beneficial. So for example, I'll have to find this journal. I have a journal of an entire year that I practice gratitude every single night. It was 5 things a day that I was grateful for. And it was back when I was 27 and I was working in that really toxic preschool job. And I wasn't manifesting anything during that time. And I was actually practicing a gratitude practice out of sheer desperation because it's what I had learned about manifestation. And I was like, I got to conjure up 5 things today that I'm grateful for. So I think it's a fantastic practice. I don't think that it has a strong correlation to manifestation. I think being expanded in your subconscious mind, being unblocked, and in your worth are what manifests for you. I think that a gratitude practice is just a beautiful spiritual practice that anybody should be practicing or can practice and access. But no, you can be a very unhappy person manifesting very well because you're in your worth. And that's why I don't believe that positivity is the law of attraction or gratitude is the law of attraction or the frequency of attraction. Yes, can it attract, more positive experiences into your life and more grateful experiences into your life? Sure. But I don't think it's going to be the thing that brings all of the abundance consistently in a big way at all.
Yeah, we definitely have to do another debunking some manifestation superstitions again, because Daniel tried, he heard somewhere, writing an affirmation of exactly what he wanted every day, until he got that thing and had a specific date. And I was like, have you not listened to anything I've been teaching you? Like,
it's a really good way to be set up for disappointment if you're not expanded and unblocked.
Yeah, I was like, that's not how it's going to happen. And he's like, no, I have to do it. I'm going to do it every day until I do it. And I was like, okay, go ahead. And then he did. And the date passed and he didn't get what he wanted. And I was like, yep. That's not how it goes. So you go, okay, what do I need to do? Fill me in.
And that's cool. This is what I call running into the fire. You've got to try. And, somebody listening right now, I can guarantee you they're sitting in their car, they're on a walk or whatever with their ear pods. And they're like, fuck these people. They don't know what they're talking about. That's bullshit. Gratitude is what manifests because they're being triggered like I used to be in many ways and still am in other ways, that the thing they've been doing and holding on to that's going to potentially secure the stuff they want could be challenged. And so that brings out our shadow, right? That's whenever we're having a trauma response in society to something someone says, or that's where a lot of cancel culture comes from, when it's not coming from the right place of change. So feel that feeling, be pissed at us, like hear it and run into the fire and practice all these other manifestation things. Because I had to, and I did it all. And not to say that this is the end all be all, but it's certainly a great structure and framework then to really get the bearings of, get it working for you, and then start to add in your flair to it, personalize it once you figure out what's working for you. So I love when people run into the fire and they try all of these other things from Napoleon Hill or The Secret, because I did it all too.
And just ending on 2 quick questions. How do you plan on teaching Theo about manifestation? Like, are you already talking to her about it? What's that dynamic like?
Well, so the guidelines that I'm kind of loosely following in parenting, very loosely, because I really believe in intuition, is RIE and intuitive parenting, which I'm sure that's a coined term out there, but it's something I've coined for myself, kind of like intuitive eating. I'm watching her, I'm letting her show me, I'm letting my intuition show me, I'm tapping in and meditating every day about how to continue being a guide, because that's what I believe I am. I believe kids come through us. They're not our property. They're not our proteges, none of that. So I say all of that to preface that I've been just trying different things with her. So one thing that I do in the day, and this is stuff that I learned at the preschool when I taught, was, to never say like, you're so pretty, or look at that pretty dress, or wow, that picture's beautiful, because that can set people up for all sorts of failures and stuff. So what I'll say to her is, wow, I always say, you're so lovable. You're so worthy. Like, I tell her that every day. And then I believe action is really everything. So to me, the way that I'm remedying my complete paranoia and neuroses around everything I know about inner child phases is that anytime I'm leading with my inner child and not my highest self, I explain it to her. I always communicate to her. So if Max and I have had like a little bit of tension between us, I know from our phase in inner child that it's really important for her to see us, have a positive resolution after. So I make sure we do that in front of her. And then I explain to her later, like, this is how I was feeling. It's not a reflection of you at all. And this is what's going on. Because I really give even brand new newborn babies the benefit of the doubt that they're incredibly sensitive, wise, sentient, understanding things. So I always do. Or if there's a moment that I feel guilt, like I had our night doula was putting her down the other night because I just needed some time to ground, and I heard her cry. And so I went in to nurse her, and then I could hear that she was having a hard time. And so I just explained to her and just said, look, this is how I'm feeling. I was having X, Y, and Z. And so I needed to go do this. And Erica's safe. She's always helping you whenever she helps us, And so I communicate to her. And that's something that, to me, I've felt will really help with her worth, because there's open dialogue and communication, and making sure to just try, as much as I'm evolved and capable of, honoring her emotional literacy and maturity as well as mine. So that's one thing. And then I've said it since the beginning of time of my practice that I think we're always going to mess our kids up. Like, it's just because they're so unique, and we all have unhealed X, Y, and Z. So I think the communication piece is so important. The emotional intelligence. I did redo inner child when I first had her, and I did it when she would be napping. I would do it next to her just to kind of see the world, like touch into that energy of, how is she feeling, and seeing the world potentially? I don't totally know. And so that really helped me get re-familiar with the phases, and what are important of these developmental times and stages. So there's that on the hopefully seemingly unblocked piece. The expansion piece, Max and I make sure whenever we're, speaking around her, that we're not projecting things on her. That's a big part of RIE. So we're going to let her lead and show us, what she wants or wants to try, say like, my mom sent her some ballet slippers and they're so cute, but I hid them. I was like, no, I want her to come to us, because she's heard about something or she saw something and she's actually leading and showing that she wants to try stuff. So we're really trying to not project onto her things. But when it comes to expansion, we're definitely always communicating around her that it's like, you can be anything you want. You can try anything you want. You have unlimited resources, we tell her. And so it's a lot of that programming verbally. And, it's just a different type of subconscious programming. And then the other thing that I would have to say is, people do say this, and I have to say it's very true. After you have a baby, you become just a gazillion times more psychic in the gifts you have. And for me, that's been very true. And I can feel her pinging me a lot. And I really believe in telepathic communication with animals and kids because they're so open and they haven't turned off that stuff yet or been exposed, I think, to the things that can turn those things off. So at nighttime or during the day, whenever I'm meditating, I'll clear our field always. So we're around a lot of people, in the house, and I'll clear both of our auras and our energies, and I'll ground us down. And then I telepathically communicate to her. So, if there's been a time that she's unsure of, she'll ask me things sometimes, like, where are you? She's just like curious while she's napping, and like if I were tuning into her right now while I'm doing this, in the office that's on the property, she's probably like, where are you? And she's with our wonderful co-care woman, Hazel, who's carrying her for naps because she won't nap by herself in a bed. So that was like the first reason I needed support, because I'm like, I cannot wear a baby for 5 naps a day. This is, for me personally, it was not filling either of us up. So probably her, but not me. And again, getting back to Max's mom, like if I'm not showing up, she's going to feel that. So I tune in with her telepathically a ton, and I just watch what she's showing us and I try to communicate. And then the last thing that I love, my friend Carolina said this to me, and apparently there's this book, I'm going to totally paraphrase, but apparently I think the title is something like The Book I Wish My Parents Would Have Read. And she said, like, the biggest takeaway she took from it is that no matter what you do, like the food you're feeding or the education type or the parenting method you're following or the et cetera, as long as you're available, apparently that's what will determine a lot of their self-worth and security. And, we were really talking about that. So I just try to be as emotionally available as possible, like right there with her where her emotions are. So whenever she's crying or whatever, I'm like, I hear you, feel all of your feelings, it's all that good stuff. So I'm trying over here to make to do what I can. But she's going to have something, or many things that she resents about us. And that's just part of the journey. And I'm just trying to do what I wish had been my foundation.
I think that is so expansive for mothers, for new mothers, for expecting mothers, for people that want kids one day, or fathers. And I also think it's really expansive for anyone that is needing healing from their childhood, because you can take some of Lacy's tips and how she's navigating motherhood right now and the way she's communicating with Theo to your DIs and take them through inner child and envision your mother or father or parent saying those things to you and supporting you in those ways. So anyone who's like, what should I do in the DI when I'm reprogramming this from inner child? Here are some great examples of things you can visualize and things you can think about when you're down there.
I think that is, like a really, really good exercise.
Oh, this has been so fun. Thank you so much, Lacy.
Thank you. This has been awesome. I hope everybody, got a little something based on wherever you are. And it's just so fun to touch base. And I think we'll have said this in the intro, but this is the 3-year anniversary that we're celebrating. So thank you guys for being on this journey with us.
Seriously, 3 years and millions of downloads later. I mean, it's just
9.
so not, we're working up on 10. Like it's wild. It's wild. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and being a part of this journey, and it's been such an honor and privilege to co-host alongside you, Lacy.
Oh man, you as well. And I have to say, when I put out the questions for today, touching base with the community, one person said, no question. I just want to tell Jessica how much she's just been killing the podcast during this time. So want to make sure you know that. And just so grateful for you in so many ways.
And you as well. Seriously, thank you so much for everything. And thank you guys again, and have a beautiful rest of your week.
See you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into the episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, we did. And in case you're not totally ready to join the pathway yet, I wanted to share a few of our free offerings that I'll often suggest to people as a little bit of a blueprint to get them started on their manifestation journey. The first place I like to direct people completely for free is the motivation. You can see it linked below or on our homepage as our testimony library. And it's categorized by different subjects, whether you're calling in career, money, love, wellness, and much more. When you're reading about a member's experience of what they manifested, you're actually seeing to believe and showing your subconscious that that very thing is possible for you. The second place I like to direct people is to the free clarity exercise, which is also linked below. In it, you get to try our own unique hypnosis process, learn about the science, and some journaling prompts. And the best part about this, you'll get a tiny taste of what it's like to go into your hypnotic state, bring your subconscious forward, and create new neural pathways while receiving clarity. And the third thing, if you haven't listened to it on this podcast yet, please go back to the episode titled Manifestation 101, where you'll learn the basics of neural manifestation to truly understand this process. So go ahead and check out those free resources, the motivation, the free clarity exercise, and the episode Manifestation 101, all linked below. And in an effort to make sure to have representation in this process series, go ahead and submit any process testimonials you have, especially to our LGBTQ+ community, our BIPOC, as well as the Ys, which is anyone in the community who is 45 and over. All right, we'll be back next week.